Hi everyone, welcome back to Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. Now this week I am there, I'm Neil Patil, but Sunila is not there because Sunila has been traveling, but we have a very special guest with us. Now before I talk about our guest, I really want to talk about something that has been running on our mind. And actually for this episode I actually wrote down an introduction because I think today's topic is very very interesting. So frequently when we talk about travel or we just think about it, we encounter a quote which is known as it's about the journey, not the destination, that truly matters. Now we try to apply this in various aspects of our lives, from work to fitness to sports, but how often do we really apply this saying literally? How often do we think about the journey while planning our holidays? More often than not, our bucket lists are actually filled with destinations with little thought given to the actual experience of getting there. We always think of the transportation mean as a thing where we'll go from point A to point B. Yet a journey can really transform an ordinary trip into an extraordinary adventure, at least in my opinion. So today, we wanted to shift our focus on one such remarkable journey, one such journey that is very, very unique. And it's about the luxury train experience in India. These trains, in my opinion at least, are not just about getting from point A to point B. They immerse us into an entire journey. And as we all know, the Indian railway network is one of the most extensive networks in the world. It serves as the lifeline to our nation. But in recent years, and when I say recent years, at least over the last decade or decade and a half, train travel in India has really gone through a transformation. It is no longer just a means of transportation, it has evolved into an experience in its own right. Now, train travel turning into an experience was first pioneered by the iconic Palace on Wheels, which is a luxury train that was the first to bring this concept to India. For a long, long time, this was a concept that was embraced by the West, but India has carved a niche for itself. So recently, I was at a travel exhibition called OTM at Geo Garden or Geo World Plaza in Mumbai. And I had the pleasure of bumping into or meeting Meenal from Team Palace on Wheels for the first time. Now, who knew that we'll get chatting and we'll be on a podcast episode? So we have Meenal from Team Palace on Wheels with us today. And it's going to be her doing all of the talking. I'm just going to be asking the question. So, Meenal, welcome to Travel Explore Celebrate Life.
Hi, Neil. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be part of this exciting podcast. I've almost heard all of these, and they have the best tips for traveling around. It's really amazing. So,
I think,
congratulations on
thank
all of the shows that you've had so far. And yeah, super excited to have this discussion with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. See, Beenal, Travel Explore Celebrate Life is always about the conversational podcast episode that we want to bring out. So I'll stop talking. I have a big list of questions prepared for you. But, you know, Palace on Wheels or luxury train travel is not known to everyone who listens to this podcast. Of course, the people who really know about it. So I would like to start at the very beginning. Like, what is the Palace on Wheels and how did the Palace on Wheels actually come into being? Like, what was the concept?
Yeah. So, yes, you're right. Palace on Wheels has made it into several people's bucket lists, and it is largely spoken about in several tour guides and ancient travel books. Now, one big reason for this is that Palace on Wheels is India's first heritage train. And the concept of Palace on Wheels really started when there were not so many hotels. In fact, that time, back in the 1980s, we did not even have the road network in India, leave aside airplanes and other ways of transportation. So, Palace on Wheels is the first of its tourism product that India had. And because all of the international travelers wanted to see India back in the days around 1980s, and that's how Palace on Wheels sort of gathered a lot of global spotlight. And since then, it has been the favorite mode of transport or tourism for all of the guests who come down. And the most amount of guests we have had are from US and UK, even parts of Australia. Let me say 99% of our tourists are international tourists. So Palace on Wheels is actually one a product that is a gateway for all the world tourists to see India. Coming back to why it is Palace on Wheels actually. Palace on Wheels towards the Golden Triangle, and much of it is from Rajasthan. And if you go to see, we've had about 17 lakh foreign tourists and 18 crore Indian tourists who had come down to Rajasthan.
Hmm.
So it is really offering a lot to the tourists all around the world. And the best way to see Rajasthan uh, came out to be putting together the train coaches that were used by the princes of the Rajputana region. So that's how actually the train was put together. And, I mean, I can go on and on about this, but this is how it came into being.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Meena, like you said, that the coaches were put together, and then we have a product which can be a product that is a heritage train product, is a luxury train product, however you want to look at it. Now, you made one statement that the train is used to showcase India to people coming from outside of India.
Yeah,
But I personally feel that it's a product that the Indian traveler also should experience. And I
absolutely.
think that's one of the reasons why we are doing this podcast, so that more and more people get to know about the Palace on Wheels. So I have like two questions. You can probably club them together, but I'll just ask you both of the questions together. One is, who should book the Palace on Wheels? Like, who is the train for? Like, is it for backpackers? Is it for history enthusiasts? Is it for culture enthusiasts? Whatever. And the second one is, train travel is often thought of that, oh, like, um, do it when you're young because it can be rigorous, it can be like, hectic sometimes, and we get these sort of people just giving us information saying that, oh, if you're old, don't do it. So can the elderly also enjoy the Palace on Wheels?
Absolutely. Given the rich history that Palace on Wheels actually has to offer to all its guests, a lot of people who want to be part of Palace on Wheels are slightly elderly people who are aware of the Rajputana times and the Maharaja culture that we had in India. So we have a lot of people who want to come down with their parents or even grandparents. It's a 7 day leisure tour with all of your meals and excursions included. So once you've got the ticket, then there's nothing else that you have to worry for. So with all aged people coming down, we cater to
Hmm.
all their requirements. We have specific caretakers. For the elderly people, we have wheelchair accessibility. We take them around on the ramps. And like I said, the hospitality in Rajasthan is unparalleled. So we've got the oldest person who was on Palace on Wheels was a 90-year-old gentleman who
Nice.
visited the train first as himself, then with his children, and very recently with his grandchildren.
Oh,
And
wow.
he often says that this is the best way to tour India, and everything is taken care of, and we just have a ball of a time.
Nice.
Another thing that they often talk about is the way it is made. It is not only Palace on Wheels by the name, but it
Hmm.
is actually in the entire experience. Royalty is strongly, strongly intricated by the way we take them around, by the kind of food that we have to offer, by the places that we go to see. And this simply comes from the fact that the train was put together by the princes of Rajputana.
Okay.
And when princes planned something, they did it with their innate style and panache. This
Hmm.
has been true of their forts and palaces, you would know, their garden retreats and hunting lodges. So there's just so much more excitement for tourists to look up to. And they went all out to create some of the most incredible monuments that is also part of the Palace on Wheels journey. And because they were kings, whatever that they wanted, it was made available to them from wherever in the world that it was. So,
And I think that experience is there for the traveler on the Palace on Wheels today, because back in the
absolutely.
day, it was for the royalty. Today, whoever goes on the Palace on Wheels feels like royalty, is what I've really heard. So now, you mentioned a lot of things. You mentioned how it could be the best way to really see India. You mentioned how there are experiences on board. You mentioned how the dining is very exquisite and it takes you on a culinary journey. So,
Yes.
of course, I'd like to cover all of the things, but let's first come to the itinerary that is used today for the Palace on Wheels experience. So, would you like to tell us, where do you start from, where do you end, and how it works, and is it something that runs all through the year, or is it only during the winter months? So that would also be a good point to just get started.
Right. So when the train started, it was a collaboration between Indian Railways and the Rajasthan Tourism Development Corporation.
Okay.
Now, because the train was largely catering to international tourists, we had to ensure very swift connectivity for them in and out of India.
Hmm.
Therefore, the train starts its journey from New Delhi.
Okay.
Um, and at the end of the journey we come back to New Delhi so that the tourists can head out to their next destination comfortably via air. And without going too detailed into the day to day itinerary, I would
Yeah.
say that after Delhi, we head to Jaipur,
Yes.
then Savai Madhavpur, Chittorgarh, Udaipur, Jaisalmer, Jodhpur, Bharatpur, and then Agra. Finally, we come back to New Delhi. Over the span of 7 days, they cover several forts, palaces, and shopping excursions, manufacturing units, forest safari, bird sanctuary. So it's a mix of history, culture, art, and all of these things put together makes for a thing that every people in any group would sort of look forward to. So there's
Uh-huh.
something for everybody on board.
Awesome. So, I always like picking out things from what someone is saying and then asking them questions, right? So, you mentioned salons. Now, we call them rooms or cabins. So,
Hmm.
are all of the rooms or cabins on board the same, or are there different categories to it?
There are three categories as on today.
Okay.
The train has been operating since 40 years. So, over the period of time, there were several modifications that were done to the original royal coaches.
Hmm.
But in order to cater to different requirements of guests, we have rooms with twin sharing, we have rooms with combined bed, that's the
Hmm.
king size bed, and we have a room which has a larger space in along with the double bed setting.
Hmm.
So they are called super deluxe suites and deluxe suites.
Yeah.
Uh, and now we're thinking of having another larger spaced room,
Okay. Nice.
which is up in the pipeline.
Hmm.
A lot of things exciting coming up on the
Hmm.
train. We are looking at having newer itineraries, more exciting engagement being planned for our guests. As in, if somebody does not want to do a full 7 day tour, what are
Hmm.
the other things that they can do?
Hmm.
Perhaps a wedding on the train, which would be wedding on wheels, and several other things are there.
That is very unique. A wedding on wheels. That
Yep.
that would be something that. And what is, like, how many people on one train? Now that we are talking about wedding, the first question like really comes up is like, how many people can a hotel accommodate? So let me ask you, how many people can a train accommodate at one time?
At its max capacity, we
Yeah.
have about 84 guests. This would
Okay.
be with two people in one room, but if we
Mm-hmm.
want, we can always squeeze in three
Mm-hmm.
because big fat Indian weddings is a very big family affair.
Mm-hmm.
However, uh, looking at the situation of weddings post COVID,
Yeah.
the group sizes have become more exclusive. Guest lists are shrinking a little, and people like to have a very intimate affair for their weddings.
Correct.
Therefore, Palace on Wheels makes for a very good venue, so to say. And couples can also do a pre-wedding photo shoot on the train because it makes for a very glorious version of DDLJ. Uh, there's only been one wedding that happened on Palace on Wheels many, many years ago. I
Mm-hmm.
think that was decades ago. So,
Yeah.
anyone looking out for a absolutely out of the box wedding venue
Mm-hmm.
can totally consider Palace on Wheels as their wedding destination
Awesome.
and say I do on a moving train.
I think that's a great idea because, we are seeing the same hotels being used by the same people doing the destination weddings, not the same couple, but people doing the same things. People go to Jaisalmer, they use a particular hotel. People go to Jodhpur, they use a particular hotel. Now, if that is happening, then something unique becomes a trend. Another thing that came to my mind is that it could also be used for corporate getaways, right? Like, like mice, where people want to do incentive trips for their teams or their dealers and all of that. So that could also work. Now, circling back to just me and my wife going on a holiday, right? We'll pay for the train and we'll pay for a particular room. Are the meals always included?
Yes, it's
And
much
yeah.
like the it's much like the cruise concept. So meals are always included. Or if you go to see any fort, then the fort tickets are included. All sorts of entertainment and activities are all part of your Palace on Wheels trip. Speaking
Okay.
about wedding and MICE events, we have two fully operational restaurant bars
Mm-hmm.
with all sorts of dining and drinks options available for them. So you can eat absolutely freshly made meals,
Mm-hmm.
which are done in the kitchen car of the train.
Mm-hmm.
And with a kitchen car on board, we have the liberty of making the meals which suits the tourist's palate and choices. So
Okay.
we offer vegan meals. If anyone's lactose intolerant, that's nothing to worry about. Gluten free meals. So people have several customizations that's available.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody wants to have Japanese sushi, and if we are told much in advance, Palace on Wheels can also serve Japanese sushi. So the
Oh, wow.
spread can be very very diverse, right from butter chicken to even noodles or tacos. And once we had a group of NRIs who were very badly craving doklas. So we had dokla, and on day three, they said, now we are missing our staple khichdi kadi. So we did that too.
Awesome. I guess that's what the experience is all about, right? Like really understanding the traveler. And whatever I've heard about people going on the Palace on Wheels, it's more about how the team that is on the train really takes care of you. And that has always been the feedback that I have got. Now, when it comes to the meals, is like our lunches and dinners like pre-planned where you go in at a certain time, you have a table allocated? Because
Yeah.
back in the day, we did like a podcast on a train experience in Australia called the Indian Pacific, where you go from one end of Australia to the other, and that's a long journey. So their tables were allocated, there was a
Yes.
menu. So how is the lunch and dinner experience in terms of just the experience of getting there? Like, how is that?
Okay. Meals in India is a very elaborate affair. And form of our hospitality, or one form of love in India, is feeding. So if we are
Yeah.
feeding, that means we are expressing our love towards our guests.
Yeah.
Um, and talking about meals in Palace on Wheels, I mentioned that the full capacity is 82 or 84 tourists.
Hmm.
We have our restaurant bars designed exactly in a way to accommodate all people at the same time.
Okay.
So yes, we could do batches, but each of the restaurant bars are having exact number of seating and tables and a little extra.
Hmm.
So at a given point of time, even if all the guests are eating, they can be nicely spaced out, and the staff is also appropriately placed in order to cater to all the guests eating. The
Hmm.
meals on train are specifically curated so
Hmm.
that each day's menu is different,
Okay.
because there are a lot of Indian delicacies, and 7 days is just not enough. So we have elaborate spreads, so you can always pick and choose from the menu, or
Yeah.
every item on the menu is served to our guests. So they
Okay.
often have a great time. We have some social media videos of guests saying that they have enjoyed meals on the train
Hmm.
better than the meals at the hotels that the train takes them to, or
Okay.
that they have been to before or after Palace on Wheels.
Okay. Now, I wanted to come to the experience bit, but here I also wanted to circle back to a travel tip that you could probably give us. Because, generally when you're traveling on such a thing, you're moving from one place to the other, but the
Yeah.
train is like your hotel. So when you're packing for an experience like this, do you suggest packing light where one person has one suitcase, or is there no limit on the amount of clothes? Because some people like to get a pair of shoes for every day, right? But
Yes.
recently we had an expedition that we did to Antarctica, and we told people, do not take anything because you'll get the parka that is given on the cruise. Similarly here, do you recommend people to just carry one bag each or something like that, because that helps in them getting more room in the cabin or room that they are in, right?
So the itinerary and the beauty of Rajasthan is that each city has a specific color to it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so Jaipur is pink city, Jodhpur is blue city, so on and so forth. So people love to pack appropriately, so that, and when they want to go see Taj Mahal, they just want to be in their best attire.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's always good to pack light, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, that's not something that is the case more often than not. So we do have storage spaces on the train.
Mm-hmm.
We have enough actually in the room as well. We have a dedicated almirah and spaces under the beds to keep
Okay.
the bags.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to move a thing. Our caretakers, or as we call them, the khidmatgars, they will come
Okay.
and help you with all the bags, because when on Palace on Wheels, you are the king and the queen, so you wouldn't be moving your bags around. So there's enough space, and it's completely safe also. We've never had any episode of a theft or something going missing on the train. So our guests can completely come down with any amount of luggage that they want. But
Mm-hmm.
if you have limited things on you, it just gets easier to move around on any trip.
Yeah.
But on Palace on Wheels per se, you don't have to worry about space constraints.
Okay. Now, what are some of the experiences on board, and what are some of the experiences that you do as excursions when you're doing the entire route that is the route that you spoke about some time earlier? So, what are those like, and how are they different from each other?
Okay, so this could be a lengthy answer, but I'm
Yeah,
very
I want a lengthy answer because that's what like this podcast is really about. So, go for it, Meena.
So let's look at the off-train experiences. We have visits to museums. We have visits to carpet manufacturing units. We have visits to places of cultural significance. So you go see marble factories. You go see the jewelry making art of Rajasthan, because Rajasthan is so full of cultural richness.
Yeah.
So all of that's happening. You're going around. You are going camel riding. You're going elephant riding, and all of these things. When you are in Savai Madhopur, you go see the Ranthambore Forest Sanctuary, and
Hmm.
that's home to several species of animals. So people love to come with their binoculars and their cameras for wildlife photography, so to say.
Yeah.
At Chittorgarh, there is a complete light and sound show. I think Chittorgarh is the largest area for a light and sound show, and it is magnificent. So that's an activity that we do outside. When our guests are in Jaisalmer, we have a private sand dune, which is only exclusive for the Maharajas and Maharanis of Palace on Wheels.
Uh-huh.
So yes, we have a very nicely curated folk concert, so to say. Then we have the fire dance, we have the Kalbelia dance. We also have the Chari dance, which people largely know as women balancing knives and plates and pots, etc. We also have the Katputli dance. So these are all of the experiences that you are doing off train,
Okay.
uh, other than the meals that you're having. So not counting meals in
I
experiences
guess I think meals are an experience in like
in
itself.
itself.
So
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So
But
yeah.
I think we're doing so many meals on the train, off the train, and in India generally, that we just sort of take them. Ki, haan, meals are just there.
Yeah, they're there. But I'm happy that you mentioned all of those experiences because one is that you'll do the excursions, which are the regular sightseeings, right? Like you mentioned, Amir Fort, you'll see it. You'll probably see the other forts of Rajasthan. But there are these unique experiences that are only enjoyed by people who do the Palace on Wheels experience. So that's
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Now, something that we really do on our podcast is try to get our guests to give us personal anecdotes, right? And
yeah.
I'm sure that you have seen, witnessed, experienced a few of these. So what were you left with? Because the Palace on Wheels is like a bucket list thing on for many people, right? So one, what makes it so special? what are some of your personal experiences like, or what do you think like makes it special for people? And from these, I'm sure there'll be many travel tips also that you'll like to give us.
On your question about personal anecdotes, I
Yeah.
will like to share a little story from the history of, let's say, Jodhpur,
Mm-hmm.
and then an anecdote by one of our guests who were part of Palace on Wheels.
Okay.
So, it is said that the founder of Jodhpur, Mr. Rao Jodha,
Mm-hmm.
um, has something very, very mystique that had happened. When the construction of Mehrangarh Fort was going on, a tantric suggested that if you were to bury a living person in the fort,
Mm-hmm.
then the fort would always stay with his descendants. Yeah.
Yeah.
A public announcement was made asking for a volunteer who would agree to be buried alive in the foundation. In return, the man's family would receive great wealth and royal protection. A man by the name of Razia volunteered and was promptly buried.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Raja kept his word and not only supported this man's family, but also officially recorded his gratitude to the state. Now, the skeptics may please note that the Tantric's prophecy holds good to this date, and Mehrangarh is still with the descendants of Rao Jodha. When I first got to know about this, I had goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like the entire devotion towards the royalty in India
Mm.
is completely unbelievable. This and there are so many other similar stories that you get to know once you are touring. Of course, travel is a great form of learning,
Mm.
but I was completely moved when I got to know about this. And the other personal anecdotes that we have, I just mentioned there was a 90-year-old person who came
Yeah.
repeatedly on the train. That was amazing. And several other people who are very, very elderly who've had Palace on Wheels as part of their bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
People have come down on the train for their 50th wedding anniversaries. People have come down on the train uh, with their grandchildren. I recently had a lady who was very, very excited to be on Palace on Wheels for her granddaughter's graduation.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, she lost her spouse just 2 weeks before the trip.
Oh,
However, she made it to the trip with her granddaughter and she took it as a moment to cherish, that bond which she had with her granddaughter. And they had a gala time. She got back and she said, coming on Palace on Wheels at this juncture of my life was the best decision that I have taken. I really had a good time and it just made me happier by leaps and bounds. So, such
wow.
amazing, touching stories. We've often seen that on the last day of the trip, when they are departing from their caretakers, having spent 7 days with them, they often get teary eyed, and the whole emotion is absolutely heartwarming.
No, I mean, it does. Like the first story, of course, always sends goosebumps down my spine because whenever I have also visited Mehrangarh Fort, the guides tell you that story, and that is something that is very, very unique to Mehrangarh, and of course, it holds true till today. And the second one, of course, is like experiences because at the end of the day, all of us who are in the service industry work towards giving these memories to people, and that's something that, like, the team and on the Palace on Wheels have really ensured that they give their guests. So if let's say it's a train, right? So can I book the whole train to do that
Yes.
route that is there? And can I change the route if I want and if I've booked the whole thing?
Absolutely. In India, we say Atithi Devo Bhava, and
Yeah.
whoever is our guest is really next to God for us. Recently, we have introduced several changes to the way we operate, and
Yeah.
it's called the charter. So you
Uh-huh.
could charter a train,
Hmm.
and the train is yours for say 7 days or 10 days, as many days as you want.
Okay.
It obviously needs prior approvals and a good
Yeah.
amount of planning. But for example, if you're doing a wedding on the train, you
Hmm.
could have the complete train to yourself.
Yeah.
If you want to take the train to, say, Kashmir,
Hmm.
if the railway tracks allow,
Mm.
you can have the train going to Kashmir. So
Okay.
you don't necessarily have to stick to the itinerary, but if you have a bigger group, then you can simply charter the train and and it need not necessarily be 84 people. The occupancy can also be worked around.
Yeah.
But guests have often taken the complete train and done, say, spiritual tours or wildlife tours. You can have your guests go to Ranthambore alone or even to Jim Corbett.
Mm.
This also is a very good proposition for people planning MICE. If
Yes.
a company in Mumbai wants to take its employees on an offsite to anywhere in the country.
Mm-hmm.
They can simply have the whole Palace on Wheels Jing Bang, the Rajasthani hospitality and the staff with them, the meals of their choice, the drinks of their choice, and head out to wherever that they want to. Right. And adding to the off train experiences, if I may just put some light on the activities that happen inside the train.
Mm-hmm.
We have several games on the train. We have a karaoke set now,
Oh, wow.
as opposed to the karaoke that you see normally in households where people are singing. Palace on Wheels karaoke is very unique. You have people singing songs from different nationalities, different languages, and
Mm-hmm.
really people from a diverse group coming together and having a ball of a time singing. We also have a very special gala dinner on the train, because we've seen that when people are coming on Palace on Wheels, they are coming not just to experience India but also interact with a very, very diverse set of people, because someone's come from London and someone's come from Georgia, someone's from Japan.
Yeah.
So they like to know each other, and this is facilitated by several team building sort of activities that we have on the train.
Mm-hmm.
I remember once we had a group of people who were so fond of playing cards. We rearranged the sitting of the restaurant bar, and there we had a full-fledged poker table,
Oh,
and there were
wow.
drinks and there was music, and just people were having a very good time there. So these are little things which our team of Palace on Wheels does not hesitate to, change things in the room, and then we have something which is really not part of the itinerary, but we're happy to go an extra mile to sort of make their experiences absolutely memorable.
That actually brings me to my next point where, like, people can have a palace on wheels bucket list where, okay, we took the palace on wheels to Rajasthan. Now let's take it to some other place in
Yes,
India
yes.
if you book it entirely. Now, can I book half of the itinerary that you mentioned at the start, or you have to book the entire thing?
Um, Ideally, in order to witness the glory of Rajasthan
Hmm.
and the Golden Triangle,
Yeah.
uh, it's best if you go through the complete tour, because if you have seen the white city and the pink city and the blue city, then you have to really go in that order. And there is
Hmm.
no other way to cover those many destinations if not for Palace on Wheels.
Okay.
Having said that, you could do express trips, but then what you choose and what you leave out is going to be a very tough thing. I'm not going to take that call for you. So
Fair
you're
enough.
on your own
Yeah.
there.
And is it an itinerary that runs all through the year, or there are any off months?
Predominantly, because Rajasthan is a state where summers are a little hot and dry.
Yeah.
Uh, we are running between September to April.
Okay.
However, now we are planning alternate itineraries which would do justice to tourists who are coming to India in the summer months.
Yeah.
So we could perhaps go to other parts of Rajasthan wherein the heat is not as scorching,
Hmm.
or we could do spiritual tours with the advent of Ram Janmabhoomi
Okay.
coming up in big buzz.
Yeah.
We're also planning an itinerary there.
Hmm.
At the moment, we are mulling over the feasibility and the other details around it. So we've not made any official announcement on that, but we're very keen, and we've already started getting queries on can we have Palace on Wheels going to Ayodhya Temple. So yes,
Mm.
that's somewhere on the cards, and it's in the pipeline. Very soon you will hear the next big announcement on this front.
So I guess one thing that really stands out is that on a train like this, it's all about the experience, because at the end of the day, luxury train travel, will continue evolving. Our wants will also continue increasing, but it's these boutique experiences that will really give you an experience that is different. So one thing I often tell people is that when you come across these experiences, why not book an experience like this as a gift to your loved one? That loved one can be anyone, right? So that really matters. Well, I think we've covered a lot of stuff, Meenal. Do you think we've missed out anything?
One thing that I think we missed in the discussion were the festivals of India. Um,
I think
Indian
let's
fest-
bring them in. Yeah.
yeah, Indian festivals is something that a lot of people all over the world look forward to, and
Mm-hmm.
more often than not, our tours around the Indian festivals are always booked much in advance. So
Mm.
we do a very elaborate Holi in Palace on Wheels. We have a complete floral affair on the train and off train. We really do Diwali with a big bang. Last year we
Okay.
had the New Year's and Christmas both coming at our Jaisalmer private sand dune. So we went ballistic. We had a concert, we had fireworks, we had magic show and whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd suggest if anyone's looking at a tour in India during the festival days, then
Mm-hmm.
they should really look at booking as early as possible, because then otherwise you'll miss out on the Palace on Wheels experience and the festival in India.
Awesome. I think that really is a good way to end it. So that don't just book any date, coincide it with a festival because that might really give you a different experience. Awesome. Thank you
Yep.
so much, Meenal. It was a pleasure having you today.
Yeah, it was fantastic talking to you too, Neil.
We've spoken of the dining, we've spoken of the cultural experiences on board and also excursions that you can do. We've spoken about the itinerary that we are there. We've spoken about the different types of rooms and salons that one can do. We've spoken about how the Palace on Wheels is not just an experience for two people, but can be booked out entirely and taken on any other route in India, and a whole lot more. It was a pleasure, and we'll certainly do another episode in the future. Listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Travel Explore Celebrate Life. We'll come to you next week with another interesting thing. But before that, go on to YouTube and check out videos of the Palace on Wheels because I think it's an experience that will really give you memories of a lifetime. Thank you and see you the next time. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.